Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
I didn't think it quite polite to listen, sir. Mr. Ernest Worthing.
Ah, how are you, my dear Ernest? What brings you up to time?
Oh, pleasure. What else would bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algie?
I believe it is customary in good society to take a light refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since Thursday?
In the country.
And what on earth do you do there?
Oh, amuse people.
And who are these people that you amuse?
Oh, neighbours.
Got nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire? Shropshire's your county, is it not?
Who's, Shropshire, yes, of course. Why all these teacups and cucumber sandwiches? Who's coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta. And Gwendolyn.
Oh, how perfectly wonderful.
Yes, that's all very well, but I highly doubt Aunt Augusta will quite approve of your being here.
Why not?
Dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. In fact, it's almost as bad as how Gwendolyn flirts with you.
Oh, but I am in love with Gwendolyn. I've come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you'd come for pleasure. I'd call that business.
Oh, how perfectly unromantic you are.
I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It's very romantic to be in love, but there's nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why, one might be accepted. One often is, I believe. And then all the excitement is over. Please don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. I ordered them especially for Aunt Augusta.
May I have bread and butter then?
Yes, have some bread and butter. Gwendolyn is simply devoted to bread and butter. It's for her.
And very good bread and butter it is too.
You need not eat as though you're going to eat it all. You act as though you were married to Gwendolyn already. You are not married to Gwendolyn already, and I highly doubt you ever will be, for I do not give my consent.
Your consent?
Dear fellow, Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, we shall have to clear up the whole issue of Cecily.
Cecily? What do you mean? I don't know anyone of the name of Cecily.
Lane?
Yes.
Bring me the cigarette case Mr. Worthing left the last time he dined here.
Yes.
Do you mean to tell me that you've had my cigarette case all this time? I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I'd wish you'd offer me one. I happen to be more than usually hard up at present. But now I look at the inscription, I find the thing isn't yours at all.
What do you mean? Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times.
No.
Besides, you have no right to read what is written on the inside. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
But this is not your cigarette case. This cigarette case is from someone by the name of Cecily. And you just told me you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt.
Yes, lovely old lady she is too. Lives in Tunbridge Wells.
But why does she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt and lives in Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
Oh, my dear fellow, what is there in that? Some aunts are tall and some aunts are not tall. That is a matter that surely an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. Just give it back, Algie.
But why does she call you her uncle if she is your aunt and lives in Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to dear Uncle Jack. Besides, your name isn't even Jack, it's Ernest.
It's not Ernest, it's Jack.
You always told me it was Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You are the most Ernest-looking person I've ever seen in my life. It's perfectly absurd to tell me that your name isn't Ernest. It is on your cards. Mr. Ernest Worthing, before the Albany. I will use this as proof if you ever try to deny that your name is Ernest, to me or to Gwendolyn or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country, and that cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your little Aunt Cecily, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, refers to you as her uncle. Come on, old boy, you'd better have the whole thing out at once. Tell me the whole thing. I had often suspected you of being a confirmed and secret Bunburyist, and now I'm quite sure of it.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean?
I will reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to inform me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Produce your explanation.
It's all perfectly simple. The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, who adopted me when I was a little boy,
Yes.
made me, in his will, the guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who refers to me as her uncle out of motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate, lives in my place in the country, under the charge of our admirable governess, Miss Prism.
What place in the country, by the way?
Oh, that is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly that it is not in Shropshire.
Oh, I suspected it, my dear fellow. I myself have Bunburyed over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, when one is placed in the position of guardian, one must adopt a high moral tone on all subjects. It is one's duty to do so. And, as a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce to either one's health or one's happiness, in order to get into town, I've always pretended to have a younger brother by the name of Ernest who lives in Albany and gets into the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Algie, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
I was quite right in saying you were a Bunburyist. You're one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth is a Bunburyist?
You have invented a very useful brother by the name of Ernest, so that you may be able to come up to town as often as you like. I have invented a very useful invalid called Bunbury, so that I may be able to go down to the country as often as I like. In fact, if it wasn't for Bunbury's terrible ill health, I wouldn't have been able to dine with you at Willis's tonight, for I really have been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't invited you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know, you're so careless about sending out invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. Nothing would... If you ever get married, which to me seems incredibly problematic, you'll be very glad to have someone like Bunbury. Ah, that must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives and creditors ever ring in that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I can get her out of the way for 10 minutes, so that you may have the opportunity of proposing to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
I suppose so, if you want it.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together. I'm sorry, Algernon, if we are running a little late, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I hadn't been there since her poor husband's death. I never saw a woman quite so altered. She looks 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea. One of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta. Good heavens, maid, why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
Oh, there were no cucumbers at the market, sir. I went down twice this morning.
No cucumbers?
No cucumbers, not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumber sandwiches. Not even for ready money. I'm also afraid I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you this evening, as I've had a telegram to say that my poor friend Bunbury is very ill again.
It's very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Oh, poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I think it is high time that Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or to die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absurd. I'd be highly obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury for me not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me. One wants something that will inspire conversation, particularly at the end of the season, when everyone has said practically whatever it is they had to say, which in most cases was probably not much.
Yes, I will speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he's still conscious. Now, if you will accompany me to the next room, we'll have a look at the programme I've drawn out.
Thank you, Algernon. It's very thoughtful of you. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me?
Certainly, Mamma. I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Ma has a particular way of coming back suddenly into a room which I've often had to speak with her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I have met you, I have admired you more than any other girl that I have ever met since I met you.
Yes, I'm quite aware of that. Only wish that in public, at any rate, you had been more demonstrative. For me, you have always been an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. Why, we live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals, and it has always been my ideal to love someone of the name Ernest. There's just something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. When Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend named Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
Oh, Gwendolyn, do you really love me?
So passionately. My own Ernest.
Oh, but you don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest, do you?
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, I know that. But to be quite candid, my dear, I don't quite care for the name of Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. Why, it produces vibration.
Well, really, Gwendolyn, I think there are other much nicer names. I think the name Jack, for instance, a charming name.
Jack?
Yes.
No.
Oh.
There's very little music in the name Jack, if any, at all, indeed. It does not really thrill, produces absolutely no vibrations. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There is no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, yes, surely. You know that I love you, and you have led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you're not absolutely indifferent to me.
Why, I adore you, but you have not proposed to me. Why, the subject of marriage has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
It would be an admirable opportunity, and to spare you any possible disappointment, I think it only fair to tell you I'm fully determined to accept you.
Oh, Gwendolyn!
Yes, what have you to say to me?
You know what I have to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Oh, yes, but how long have you been about it? Oh, what wonderfully brown eyes you have. They are quite brown. I hope you'll always look at me like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. It's most indecorous.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing was not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, you are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged, I will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come on a young girl as a surprise. It's hardly a matter that she should be allowed to arrange for herself. And now, Mr. Worthing, I have some questions to put to you. While I make these inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mamma!
In the carriage, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, the carriage!
Mamma.
You may sit, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel obliged to tell you that you are not down on my list as eligible young man. However, I'm quite ready to enter your name, should your answer be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I'm afraid I must admit I do smoke.
I am glad to hear it. Every man should have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. What age are you?
29.
Very good age to be married at. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
That is satisfactory. Now to minor matters. Are your parents living?
Well, no. I've lost both my parents. I don't actually know who I am of birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes. I was found in a rather large black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this charitable gentleman come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom in Victoria Station.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station. Mr. Worthing, I feel somewhat bewildered by what you've told me. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of a family life. As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, a cloakroom in a railway station could hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognised position in good society.
Well, may I ask then what you would advise me to do? I hardly need say that I would do anything to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would highly advise you to produce at any rate one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
I could produce the handbag at any time. I think that should suffice, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? You could hardly imagine that Lord Bracknell and I would dream of allowing our only daughter to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning.
God, heavens, Garson, don't play that Garson tune. How idiotic you are.
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say Gwendolyn's refused you. She's always refusing people, and I think it is most ill-natured of her.
Oh no, as far as Gwendolyn is concerned, we are engaged. Her mother, on the other hand, is perfectly unbearable. Never met such a gorgon. Oh, you don't think there's any chance of Gwendolyn turning out like her mother in about 150 years, do you, Algie?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does, though, and that's his. Did you tell Gwendolyn about you being Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
Oh, Algie, that's not the sort of thing that one tells a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
And what about your brother, the profligate Ernest?
Oh, by the end of the week I shall have rid of him. I'll say he died in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die quite suddenly to apoplexy, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary, dear fellow. The sort of thing that runs in families. You'd better say a severe chill.
And you're sure a severe chill isn't hereditary or anything, is it?
Of course it isn't.
Very well then. My poor brother, Ernest, is taken suddenly ill in Paris of a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But I thought you said that your ward, Miss Cardew, had grown a little too fond of your brother Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
Oh, that is all right. Cecily is not a silly, romantic girl, I am glad to say. She has a capital appetite, goes for long walks and pays no attention at all in her lessons.
I would rather like to see Cecily.
And I will take very good care that you don't. She's excessively pretty and only just 18.
So have you told Gwendolyn you have an excessively pretty ward who's only just 18?
Oh, the truth isn't quite the sort of thing one blurts out to people. Gwendolyn and Cecily are very sure to be very good friends. I bet you within half an hour of them having met, they'll be calling each other sister.
Women only do that when they've called each other a lot of other things first. Now, we must go and dress if we want to get a good table at Willis's. I'm hungry.
I have never known you when you weren't.
Miss Fairfax.
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolyn, I don't think I can allow this at all.
My own one.
We may never be married. From the look upon Mademoiselle's face, I fear we never shall. And though she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else and marry often, there is nothing she could do to alter my eternal devotion to you.
My own darling.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my being. Your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire.
There is good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something drastic. I will communicate with you daily. How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algie, you may turn round now.
Thank you, I've turned round already.
My own one, you will allow me to escort you to your carriage?
Certainly.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going bunburying.
Yes, sir.
I shall not be back till Monday. You can put up my clothes, my smoking jackets, and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I think tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you are a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
Now there's a sensible, intelligent girl. The only woman I've ever cared for in my life. What are you so amused at?
I'm just a bit anxious about Bunbury.
Well, if you don't take care of your friend Bunbury, he'll get you into a serious scrape one day.
Oh, I love scrapes.
Cecily. Surely such a utilitarian occupation as the watering of the flowers is rather Milton's duty than yours, especially at a moment when intellectual pleasures await you. Your German grammar is on the table. Pray open it at page 15. You know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself. He laid particular stress on your German as he was leaving for town yesterday. Indeed, he always lays particular stress on your German as he is leaving for town.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes I think he is so serious that he cannot be quite well.
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. You must remember his constant anxiety with that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish dear Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism.
I do not even think that I could produce any effect on a character that, according to his own brother's admission, is irrevotably weak and vacillating. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I really don't see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry with us.
Yes, it usually chronicles the things that haven't happened and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory is responsible for all the 3-volume novels in our libraries.
Do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novel, Cecily. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? Was it ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript was either lost or misplaced.
I see dear Dr. Schwartzbull coming up through the garden.
Dr. Schwartzbull, this is indeed a pleasure.
And how are you this evening, Miss Prism? You are, I trust, well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache, Dr. Schwartzbull. It would do her so much good to have a short stroll around the park with you.
Cecily, I have not mentioned anything about a headache.
I know, but I felt instinctively you had a headache.
I think I will have a stroll with you after all, dear doctor. I find I do have a headache now.
With pleasure, with pleasure.
Cecily, you may read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It is somewhat too sensational.
Horrid political economy, horrid geography, horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just called from the station. He has brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, he seemed very much disappointed. He said he was anxious to speak with you privately for a moment.
Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here, and I suppose you better talk to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I've never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he's going to look just like everyone else. He does.
You're my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
And you are my cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, but I'm not really wicked at all, cousin. You mustn't think that I'm wicked.
If you are not, then you have been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you've not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Oh, I suppose I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
In fact, I have been very bad in my own small way. That's why I've come here. I'd like you to reform me. You might make it your mission, cousin Cecily.
Afraid I've no time this afternoon.
Well, would you mind my reforming myself this afternoon?
I think you should try.
I do. I feel better already. Cecily, you are the prettiest girl I've ever seen in my life.
I don't think it should be right for you to talk to me that way. Miss Prism never said such things to me.
Then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
A snare that any sensible gentleman would like to be caught in.
You are too much alone, dear Dr. Schwartzbull. You should get married. You do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Mr. Worthing!
Mr. Worthing.
This is indeed a surprise. We did not look for you till Monday afternoon.
I have returned sooner than expected. Dr. Choswell, I hope you are well.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother.
Still his life of pleasure.
Dead.
Your brother Ernest dead?
What? Dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust he will profit by it.
Were you with him in the end?
No, he died abroad, in Paris, in fact. I received a telegram from the master of the Grand Hotel yesterday afternoon.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
You would no doubt wish me to make some slight allusion to this terrible domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of manna in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion, joyful or, as in this case, distressing. I have spoken on harvest days, christenings, confirmations, and days of humiliation.
You mentioned christenings. That reminds me. I suppose you know how to christen all right? I mean, you are continually christening?
Is there some particular infant in whom you're interested in, Mr. Worthing?
Oh, no, it's not for an infant. It is for me. Unless you think I'm too old.
I thought you were christened already.
Oh, but I do not remember it.
Well, you need have no apprehensions. The immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
The sprinkling is all that is necessary, or as I believe required, whathersoever changeable. When do you want the ceremony to be performed?
Would how 5 do?
Admirably, admirably. Now, Mr. Worthing, I will no longer intrude into a house of sorrow, but I just want you to know that what often seem to be bitter trials in the moment are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack, I am glad to see you back. But what horrid clothes you have on. Do you go and change some...
Cecily!
Child.
Uncle Jack, whatever is the matter? Do look happy. Such a surprise for you. You'll never guess who's in the dining room.
Who?
Your brother.
What nonsense! I haven't got a brother.
Your brother Ernest. He arrived about half an hour ago. I'll go tell him to come out.
These are very joyful tidings.
After we had all been resigned to his loss, his sudden return seems to me peculiarly distressing.
Good heavens!
Brother John, I've come up to tell you that I'm very sorry for all the trouble I may have caused you, and that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you are not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing would induce me to take his hand. I think his coming down here utterly disgraceful. He knows himself why.
Uncle Jack? Do be nice. There is some good in everyone. Ernest here has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend Mr. Bunbury, whom he goes to visit so often.
Oh, he's been talking to you about Bunbury, has he? Well, I won't have him talking to you about Bunbury or anything else for that matter.
Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never.
Never, never, never.
Well, this is the last time I shall do it.
It's such a beautiful reconciliation. I think we'll leave the two brothers alone now.
Cecily, you will come with us.
You have done a beautiful action today, dear child.
Algy, you young scoundrel, you must leave this place. I won't have you doing any Bunburying here.
I have put Mr. Ernest things in the room next to yours, sir. I suppose that's all right.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Ernest here has suddenly been called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I have not been called back to town at all.
Oh, but you have. You have got to leave by the 4:05 train. And I wish you a very pleasant journey back to town. This Bunburying, as you call it, has not been very successful for you.
Well, I think it's been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily, and that is everything!
I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
Oh, no, he's gone to order the dog cart for me.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
No, he's going to send me away.
The dog cart is at the door, sir. It can wait, Merriman.
For 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
Oh, Cecily, I hope I will not embarrass you if I state quite openly that you seem to me to be an absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest.
Now, if you'll allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? I'd give anything to have a look. May I?
No! You see, it is simply a very young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions. But Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. I'm quite ready for more. Ernest, don't cough. I don't know how to spell cough.
Cecily, ever since I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you. Wildly, devotedly, hopelessly.
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
Tell it to come back next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed to know you were staying on until next week, at the same hour.
Oh, I don't care about Uncle Jack. I don't care for anyone in the whole world but you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy, of course.
What?
Why, we've been engaged for the past 3 months.
For the past 3 months?
Yes, it'll be 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
And when was our engagement actually settled?
On the 4th of February last, worn out by your complete ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or another. And after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you in this very garden. The next day I bought this little ring in your name, and this is the bangle with the true lover's knot I promised you always to wear.
Did I really give you this? It's very pretty.
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've given you for leading such a bad life.
Oh, Cecily, you are a perfect angel.
You dear romantic boy. Your hair curls naturally, I hope.
It does, with little help from others.
I am so glad.
You'd never break off our engagement again, would you, Cecily?
Of course. Not that I've actually met you. I don't think I could. Of course, there is the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
Don't laugh at me, darling. It's always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Ernest. There's something in the name that inspires absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not named Ernest.
But seriously, Cecily, do you mean to tell me that you could not love me if I had some other name?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character. I'm afraid I would not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, the rector here, I trust, is thoroughly experienced in the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh, Dr. Chorleswood's a most learned man.
I must see him at once about a most important christening. I mean, most important appointment.
Oh.
I'll be right back.
What an impetuous boy he is. I must enter his remarks into my diary. I like his hair so much.
Miss Fairfax has just called to see Mr. Worthing.
Is it Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went in the direction of directory some time ago.
Ask the lady to come here. And you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax. I suppose one of the many good elderly women associated with Uncle Jack in London.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew! What a very sweet name. I can tell we are going to be great friends. Allow me to take a closer look at you.
Oh, of course. I'm quite fond of being looked at.
You're here on a short visit, I presume.
Oh, no. I live here.
Oh, your mother, no doubt, or some female relative of advanced years resides here also?
Oh, no. I have no mother. Or, in fact, any relations.
Indeed.
My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I am Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh, that is strange. He never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I'm not sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I'm quite fond of you, Cecily. I've liked you ever since I first met you. But I'm bound to tell you that now I know you are Ernest's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish that you were just a little older than you appear to be, and not so very alluring in appearance.
Pardon me, Miss Fairfax. Did you say Ernest?
Yes.
Oh, but it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
He never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I'm afraid to say they've not been on good terms for a very long time.
That accounts for it. Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. Though you are quite sure it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian?
Quite sure. In fact, I am going to be his...
I beg your pardon?
Dear Miss Fairfax, Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
My dear sweet Cecily, there must be some slight error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me.
Dear Miss Fairfax, I think you must be under some misconception. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
Well, that is quite strange, for he proposed to me yesterday afternoon at 5:30. I never travel without my diary. Someone should always have something sensational to read on the train. I'm so sorry, my dear Cecily, but it would appear I have the prior claim.
I feel bound, Miss Fairfax, to tell you that since Ernest proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind.
Ernest! My own Ernest!
Cecily!
Sorry?
Gwendolyn, sorry.
A moment. May I ask if you are engaged to be married to this young lady?
Oh, to little Cecily? No, of course not. What could have put an idea in your pretty little head?
Thank you, you may.
Miss Fairfax, I knew there must be some misunderstanding. The man who is currently embracing you is my dear guardian, Mr. John Worthing. I beg your pardon? This is Uncle Jack.
Jack! Oh!
Here's Ernest.
My own love.
A moment, Ernest. May I ask, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To which young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolyn! No. What could have put such an idea in your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
There must have been some slight error. The man who is currently holding your hand is my dear cousin, Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief! Are you really called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name is certainly John. It has been John for many years.
Gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet wronged Gwendolyn.
You will call me sister, will you not?
There was just one question I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there is one question I would like to be allowed to put upon you. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, so it is a matter of grave importance to us both to know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolyn. Cecily, I have no brother Ernest. I've never had a brother, not even of any kind.
No brother at all?
None.
Not even of any kind.
Never, not even of any kind.
And it would be clear that neither of us are engaged to be married to anyone.
It's not a very pleasant position for a young girl to suddenly find herself in now, is it?
Here's another question I would like to be allowed to ask you.
Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
So that I may have the opportunity of meeting you.
That certainly seems a satisfactory answer, does it not?
Yeah. If you can believe him.
I don't. That does not affect the wonderful beauty of his answer.
True. In matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer me for pretending to have a brother? Was it so that you could have the possibility of coming to town as often as possible to see me?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest doubts upon the subject, but I intend to crush them. The explanations seem quite satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing's.
I am more than content with what Mr. Moncrief said. His voice alone inspires one with absolute credulity.
Then you think we should forgive them?
Yes. I mean, no.
True. There is still the insuperable barrier of their Christian names.
Our Christian names? Is that all? But we're going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this terrible thing.
I am.
To please me, you are ready to face this fearful ordeal.
I am.
Oh, darling.
Oh, darling.
Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
You are nothing of the kind, dear. And now, as regards Algernon.
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
May I ask if it is in this house that your invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, resides?
Oh no, Bunbury doesn't live here, Aunt Augusta. Bunbury is somewhere else at present. In fact, Bunbury is dead.
Dead?
Yes.
When did he die? His death must have been extremely sudden.
Oh, I killed Bunbury this afternoon. I mean, Bunbury died this afternoon.
What did he die of?
Bunbury was quite exploded. The doctors found out that Bunbury couldn't live anymore, so Bunbury died.
Well, he must have had great confidence in the opinions of his physicians. I am glad, however, that he made up his mind at last to some definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. Now that we have gotten rid of this Mr. Bunbury, may I ask, Mr. Worthing, who is this young person whose hand my nephew is holding in an unnecessary manner?
That lady is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I am engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon.
Mr. Moncrief and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
I believe some preliminary inquiries on my part would not be out of place. Gwendolyn, the time approaches for our departure. We haven't a moment to lose. Just as a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I feel I'd better ask if Miss Cardew had any fortune?
Oh, about £130,000. That's all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell. So pleased to have seen you.
Just a moment, Mr. Worthing. £130,000. Miss Cardew is a most attractive young lady now that I look at her. Few girls of the present day have any solid qualities. Qualities that last and improve with time. Come here, dear. Pretty child. But your dress is sadly simple, and your hair, as nature might have left it. But we can soon alter that. Kindly turn around for me, sweet child. No, the side profile is what I want. As I expected, there are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The chin a little higher, dear. Style largely depends on how the chin is worn. It's to be worn very high, just as present. Algernon?
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
There are distinct social possibilities in her profile.
Cecily is the prettiest, sweetest, dearest girl I've ever met, and I don't care tuppence about social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only those who cannot get into it do that.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
I believe you must get married as soon as possible.
Oh, thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I'm not in favour of long engagements. They give people the opportunity to find out each other's character before marriage. I would never advise that.
Oh, pray excuse me for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Cecily Cardew's guardian, and she cannot marry without my consent until she comes of age, and that consent I absolutely decline to give.
On what grounds, may I ask? Algernon is an extremely, may I almost say ostentatiously, eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything. What more could one desire?
I do not approve of his moral character. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon? Impossible.
I fear there can be no doubt at all in the matter. This afternoon, during my temporary absence in London, he gained admission to my house by means of false pretense of being my brother. He was very well aware from the first, I have no brother, I have never had a brother, and I don't intend on having a brother, not even of any kind.
Cecily, dear, how old are you?
Well, I'm really only 18, but I always admit to 20 when I go to evening parties.
18, but admitting to 20 at evening parties. Well, it's not long until you will be of age. So I believe that the consent from your guardian is, after all, no matter of any importance.
Oh, pray excuse me for interrupting you again, Lady Bracknell, but I feel it is only fair to tell you that Miss Cardew here, according to the terms of her grandfather's will, doesn't come of age until 35.
That does not seem to me to be a grave objection, Mr. Worthing. 35 is still a very attractive age, and I believe that our dear Cecily will still be, if not more attractive, by the time you mention.
Algie, did you wait for me until I was 35?
Oh, Cecily, you know I could.
I know that, but I couldn't wait all that time. I'm not punctual myself, but I do like punctuality in others. Waiting even to be married is quite out of the question.
Then what is to be done, Cecily?
My dear Mr. Webb, as Miss Cardew states positively that she cannot wait for Algernon till she is 35, a statement that implies an impatient nature, I could beg of you to reconsider your decision.
Oh, but my dear Lady Bracknell, the matter is entirely in your own hands. The moment that you consent to my marriage with Gwendolyn, I will most gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
You must know that what you offer is out of the question. Gwendolyn, we have already missed 5, if not 6 trains by now. To miss any more might expose us to comment on the platform.
Everything for the christening is ready.
The christening? Is that not somewhat premature?
I don't think that, as things are now, they would be of much practical use to either of us, Dr. Choswell.
I'm grieved to hear such sentiments, Mr. Worthing. However, your mood seems to be one peculiarly secular. Indeed, I must go. I have just been informed by the key opener. I've been leaving Miss Prism waiting for me in the vestry for the past hour and a half.
Miss Prism? Did I hear you mention Miss Prism?
Yes, I'm going to see her now.
Pray allow me to detain you for a moment, sir. This matter could be of vital importance to Lord Bracknell and I. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect, remotely connected to education?
Ah, she's the very picture of respectability.
She's obviously the same person. May I ask, what position does she hold in your household?
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has been for the last 3 years Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
Despite of what I hear of her, I must see her at once. Let her be sent for.
She approaches. She's nigh.
I was told you expect me in the vestry, dear Canon. I've been waiting there for over an hour and 3/4.
Prism, come here. Where is that baby, Prism? 28 years ago, you left Lord Bracknell's house in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. But you never returned. A few days later, the Metropolitan Police discovered the perambulator standing by itself in a corner at Bayswater, contained a manuscript of a 3-volume novel that had unusual sentimentality. But the baby was gone. Prism, where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I do not know. I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the day that you mentioned, I planned as usual to take the baby out in its perambulator. I also had with me a somewhat old handbag in which I intended to place a work of fiction that I had written. In a moment of mental abstraction, I deposited the manuscript in the bassinet and the baby in the handbag.
But where did you deposit the handbag?
Do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
Miss Prism, this is a matter of grave importance. I must insist on knowing where you deposited the handbag that contained the infant.
In the cloakroom in one of the larger railway stations in London.
Which railway station?
Victoria, the Brighton line.
I have to go to my room for a moment.
What do you suppose this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even suspect, sir.
Oh, Jack seems strangely agitated.
The noise is extremely unpleasant.
Stop now.
I do hope that he could arrive to some conclusion.
Miss Prism, is this the handbag? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
It seems to be mine. Yes, here is the injury it received in upsetting on a Gower Street omnibus in younger days. And here on the lining is the stain of an explosion of a temperance beverage. And here on the lock are my initials. This bag is undoubtedly mine. I am delighted to be reunited with it. It has been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
More is reunited with you than this bag. I was the baby that was placed in it.
You?
Yes, Mother!
Mr. Worthing, I am unmarried.
Unmarried. I do not doubt that this is a serious blow. But, then again, who has the right to cast stones against one who has suffered? I forgive you, Mother!
Mr. Worthing, there is some error. There is the lady who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell. I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me as to who I am?
I'm afraid to tell you that the news I have to give will not please you altogether. You are the son of my poor sister, Miss Moncrief, and consequently, Algernon's elder brother.
Algy's elder brother? When then I do have a brother after all! Oh, I always knew I had a brother. I always said I had a brother. Cecily Cecily, how could you have doubted that I had a brother? Dr. Chosball, my unfortunate brother! Miss Prism, my unfortunate brother! Gwendolyn, my unfortunate brother! Oh, Algy, you had better treat me with more respect in future. You've never behaved to me like a brother in your life.
Well, not till today, old boy, I admit, though I have to confess I was slightly out of practice.
My own? But what own are you? What is your name now that you have become someone else?
Good heavens, I'd quite forgotten that fact. Your decision on the subject of my name is irrevocable, I suppose.
I never change, except in my affections.
Then the question had better be cleared up at once. What was my name?
Being the eldest, you were naturally christened after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
I'm afraid to tell you that I cannot recall the General's Christian name at present.
Algernon, can you remember our father's Christian name?
Oh, dear boy, we were never on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
His name would appear in the army list of the period, I suppose, Aunt Augusta. Oh, I have them in my library for over 40 years. I see now I should have made them my constant study.
I've no doubt that his name would appear in any directory military, but he was essentially a man of peace. Well, not in his domestic life.
Generals, Malum, Magsbone, Magley, what ghastly names they have. Markby, Migsby, Mobbs, Moncrief, Lieutenant, 1840, Captain, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, General, 1869, Christian names. Ernest John! Oh, I always knew my name was Ernest, Gwendolyn. I always told you my name was Ernest, didn't I? Well, it really is Ernest. I mean, naturally, it is Ernest.
Ernest, my own! Ernest! I felt from the start you could have no other name.
Gwendolyn, it is a terrible thing for a man to find out that all his life he's been speaking nothing but the truth. Can you forgive me?
I can, for I feel you are sure to change.
My own one!
Cecily, my own.
You are all displaying signs of excessive triviality.
Not I, Aunt Augusta. Quite the contrary.
For the first time in my life, I finally understand the vital importance of being earnest.